And joining me now is the one and only Dr. Wilfred Reilly, author of the book Lies My Liberal Teacher Told Me. Dr. Reilly, what's up, my man?
What's up? How are you?
We're doing great. We're hanging in there. We are watching as and I got to tell you, I'm personally happy the president dropped the F-bomb the other day. I want more of this in public. In case you don't know, Justin, let's play the clip for Dr. Reilly. He was referring to Israel and Iran, but I think we could say this applies to a lot of different things. Go ahead.
They don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
Dr. Reilly, I like the F-bomb. I feel like it should be used more in society. What are your thoughts?
I don't know. I mean, they're kids watching, but I certainly thought that one. I thought that one selectively was pretty well used. I mean, Trump was going off because this is very skillful by the big guy. He negotiated a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. And the thing is, the ceasefire didn't take effect immediately. It took effect in 12 hours. They both said things like, we have to get warriors out of the unsafe zone, the negotiations and talks. And immediately after they signed the ceasefire, both sides then started bombing each other for much of that 12 hours. Like Israel dropped bombs in Tehran. Iran fired 5 intercontinental ballistic missiles into Israel. So Trump then told them to stop, and they did. I mean, his comment about Israel was like, well, okay, I know the ceasefire didn't take effect yet, but you don't sign it and then drop more bombs and have entire time up to it. So that's what Trump was reacting to. He was talking about one of those things in international politics where people are kind of playing games with the law and saying, well, we're not technically not at war yet.
Right.
So he was a little mad. He was a little mad at them, and both countries after that rant did stop the escalation. So Trump can now take credit for a Middle East ceasefire.
Let's turn our attention to New York. Are you surprised that this Mamdani guy won and defeated Andrew Cuomo? Because I mean, they say it's a political earthquake. I was surprised. I figured the Cuomo name alone was powerful enough. I also thought New Yorkers were kind of sick of the crime and everything else. But I mean, he won. And what do you make of this guy?
Well, I mean, so I'm surprised he won, too. The joke is that New York can never let Chicago or Philly lead in a category like worst crazy mayor. So Brandon Johnson in Chicago obviously took power a year ago, and he's an African-American guy. He's a straight-up communist. And so a lot of Chicagoans are saying, New York is going to vote for this guy just so they could say they have the most cutting-edge mayor over there in Manhattan. I was surprised by the win, though. I mean, Cuomo, he made some mistakes under COVID, one of which led to a large number of seniors dying, frankly. Yeah. But, I mean, had been the governor of the state, at least on the Democratic side, he'd been ranked a B-minus governor. That generally translates to a slightly better mayor. The name is pretty familiar. And you've got other serious politicians. I mean, you've got Curtis Sliwa, who founded the Guardian Angels, who's preparing to enter as a Republican. You've got Eric Adams, the former mayor, who, again, I don't like him as a conservative guy, but generally thought to have done an okay, B-average job. So Zohran Mamdani is a Muslim-American former rapper who was originally polling at 2%. And I think everyone thought this was kind of a joke, but he put together this really funny hipster campaign. He had these great ads where he was complaining about the cost of street hot dogs and halal truck chicken. He got some celebrity endorsements. Raekwon, the chef from the Wu-Tang Clan, endorsed him. So, he had all his female canvassers wear shirts that said hot girls for Zohran, with varying degrees of accuracy. But he did this very kind of NYC campaign as you got off I saw some of his canvassers when I got off near Times Square for a media hit, and he apparently got just enough of the vote to win. And the last thing about this, his vote, people keep saying, well, this is immigrants, this is all these Eastern Europeans and Hispanics and all these people coming. No, Zohran Mamdani's base was college-educated white women and some men. Like, we're starting to see those numbers. That's one of the few sets of numbers I was willing to pay my database for yesterday. His vote was driven by upper middle class white and Asian women and to some extent guys in those same groups. So he polled best in Manhattan, worst in the Bronx. I mean, it was really interesting data.
So white liberals, again, we're talking about white liberals basically being the group that supported him.
Yeah, well, I think we have a two-part problem. I mean, if you go to the cities, you obviously do see that in African-American neighborhoods, recent immigrant neighborhoods of all colors, there's a lot of crime. There are people sleeping on the street, all this kind of stuff that you can't have. Kids are at risk. But you also see, this is the bigger part of the piece, that there's a specific group of people allowing that, and those usually aren't like the church ladies in those neighborhoods. So when you look at voting patterns, like the most liberal voters invariably are white, college-educated, mostly female, upper middle class. Like, I mean, if you're familiar with New York, Mamdani won Murray Hill by like 32 points. So that's what happened in this race. And like a lot of the problems in the city, you know, as a black guy who's a local leader in a city, like I have no patience for them at all, just arrest people. But there's a group of people that are preventing you from doing that. And it's not like Hispanic dads. So that's the two-part problem in a lot of these cities.
How about some of his tweets about defunding the police? Because it was bad for the police were bad for trans women, and he's I mean he had a lot of nutty tweets about defunding the police.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we both spent some time in Catholic school. It's like the catechism, right? Like, and I shall not want. Like, there are like 10 or 12 things you just say at different times of the day. And of course, there's nothing wrong with one of the great human religions. But I feel like woke people have the same thing with like rote stuff that they have to say. Like, this is an example of racist, cis-sexist sexism would be like a catechistic woke comment. And these are also across areas where like not all of the variables exist. So like the people that are arrested by the police in a big city are going to be about 50% black, 50% different variations on Caucasian, all poor, mostly male, mostly fatherless. Like we've known this for a very long time. So to say something like the police are hardest on women, especially trans women, is just nonsensical until you realize that someone's being religious. Mm-hmm. Like, that is the rote. Like, this is racist, but also it is sexist. So that's what Mamdani was saying. I think his police defunding is queer liberation is the tweet you're referring to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Queer liberation, and there was one about defunding the police is well, you know, I had some of the. I pulled some of them up. I know there was one he talked about how for trans women, the police were, particularly for trans women, they were very rough on them. I don't know why exactly.
Yeah, police violence.
Yeah.
Yeah. On my phone just now, violence is hardest on women, especially trans women.
Right.
And again, that's something that doesn't even make sense. You can be for the police, which I am. You can be against over harsh urban policing. But about 80% of the people arrested by the police are just men.
Yeah.
So that doesn't really make any sense, but it's the catechistic thing you have to say. The police are hard on us all, especially black folks, especially black female people, especially black female people of transness, and so on. So anyway, it's just nonsense, but that's what he said.
And of course, Dr. Reilly also wrote the book Hate, Crime, Hoax. So it's great to have him here. I mentioned you the other day because I don't know if you caught this on The View or not, but when Whoopi Goldberg went into her whole rant about how we're no better than Iran, and she brought up the Matthew Shepard killing, and she said, in this country, we tie gay people to the back of cars. You remember that comment she made?
Yeah, and I actually think she's messing up two different hate crimes, one, if not both of which, was a hoax. Matthew Shepard, first of all, Matthew Shepard was a gay guy who was killed in Wyoming. And because this was Wyoming, because he'd been in a tough cowboy bar earlier that night, the universal presentation was he was killed for being gay. It turned out Matthew Shepard was one of the larger methamphetamine dealers in that city. And he'd been killed by a bisexual guy who he knew personally. So whether the story there has any value at all is an interesting question. But so Matthew Shepard, he was tied to a fence. He was beaten. He ended up dying. It's cold in that part of the country. The case she's referring to is the James Byrd case, which was where a black guy, and this did happen, but a black guy was tied to the back of a car by two white guys and was killed. That seems to be a genuine hate crime. But in either case, you can't take some isolated incident. There's a crime in a city and compare that to Iran or North Korea. I mean, girls as a group can get married at 9 in Iran. So this rush to defend Iran and say we're no better than a theocratic Muslim dictatorship is extremely unusual, especially from, again, the feminists and liberals and so on down the line.
Yeah, I have a feeling The View would not be on the air in Iran. I mean, I don't know the quality of their programming, but I have a strong hunch that show would not be on.
Well, if anything, that's a point for Iran. I mean, Iranian TV is actually, it's pretty funny. It's a lot of the old war movies from the West. It's a lot of our fairly wholesome Leave It to Beaver type stuff. It's Muslim cinematic content, which is often pretty good. A lot of adventure epics. But yeah, no, I mean, whether or not we think some of this might be a positive, Iran is an openly patriarchal country. There are no, that I'm aware of, female-hitted shows featuring feminist businesswomen on the air in Tehran. So, to some extent in the USA, we have the luxury of saying that the country is evil, which is a good sign that it's not, if that makes sense. It's like if you obsess about your soul, you're probably a good person. It's a very old line in Christianity and Buddhism. Similarly, if we allow people to march in the streets chanting about how the country is run by gangsters and thieves, I mean, it probably isn't.
Dr. Wilfred Reilly is with us. Lies My Liberal Teacher Told Me is the book. You definitely want to get your copy of it. It's great to have him with us today. I appreciate him being here. So let's talk about Iran in general. And I think it's also worth noting, Dr. Reilly, that we're having this conversation about the people potentially rising up and maybe throwing off the government, the Ayatollah. They've done that before. Is there any chance that could happen again, you think? I mean, that there could be some kind of a regime change that's not facilitated and orchestrated by the United States of America. And by the way, in my opinion, it should not be. I don't want us in the business of regime change, but.
Yeah, I think it's possible. I mean, so Persia is not like a lot of these other countries that we've engaged with in the Middle East. I mean, now, Iraq used to be Assyria. That's a fairly civilized country. The issue there was just that the leader, Saddam Hussein, was literally a madman. He was about to pass down what was basically a kingdom to his sons, Uday and Qusay. Should we have gone in, we lost almost 10,000 men. That's up in the air. But, I mean, Iraq, there was at least some possibility. Afghanistan is a country that's been viewed as kind of bandit-haunted wilderness since there were countries. Like, that's where Alexander the Great got shot. I mean, so, like, the idea that we were going to come in and we were going to establish a functioning democracy with, like, the Hazara and Pashtun and so on, tribal warriors, was always a fantasy. And the moment we left, the Taliban took over, and hopefully what they'll do is put in the equivalent of a strong king and stay in power for 80 years. So there wasn't much hope there. Persia, obviously, though, was one of the great powers historically. Persia traded honors about equally with Greece. The old Caucasian kings of the Middle Ages traded with Persia and Ethiopia, and the Persians usually had a king called the Shah. What happened in the Iranian Revolution in the 1970s is that the communists and the Islamists teamed up to toss out, like, the good king, and then the Islamists killed all the communists. Mm-hmm. And they proceeded to take women's rights away and all that. And right now there's a huge undercurrent of unrest in Iran, which is a country with an average income not that far below that of Mississippi, a major city in Tehran, television networks like we just discussed. And the question is, when can we get rid of these religious nutters who tend to be from the rural infantry and go back to what we were? And the Iranian crown prince, Rehman Pahlavi, is like a guy, like he's in American social life. He wasn't on The Apprentice, but he was on something very similar. Like, he gives speeches to chambers of commerce. And he's popular in Persia as well. So, like, there have been requests that he come back. The only problem is that would require a war, because the Ayatollahs, like, there's an elected government that's actually pretty competent, but behind it, there's kind of the dark eminence of, like, these Muslim clerics sitting on cushions. And you'd have to, frankly, kill all those people to be able to bring the king back and to be able to bring back the parliament that went with him and so on. So we'll see.
By the way, there's an update on the New York City mayoral candidate. 50 Cent is now offering him $258,750 for a first-class one-way ticket away from New York. I don't know where he came up with that number, $258,750, but Fitty is trying to get Zohran Mamdani out of here. So I just thought that was an interesting update.
Yeah, I mean, it's really remarkable to think that Zohran Mamdani might win. I mean, Zohran Mamdani knows 50 Cent because he used to be an aspiring rapper. So, like, if you ever Google Zohran Mamdani Holy Land 5, like, he's got, like, a 16-bar rap where he talks about Hamas terrorism. I mean, he's not a terrorist himself, but he's like a hip-hop kid he's like 30 years old, 33. He's originally from Uganda or Zambia. He moved here with his family. They were in business, came to New York. You know, just a whole bunch of silly stuff. His father was one of the directors of the movie Mississippi Masala, which is like a syrupy Yeah, it's not a bad movie, but it's like a syrupy interracial love story set in Mississippi 30 years ago. I mean, so there's just this whole kind of weird pop culture thing about this guy, and it's genuinely interesting to think that he might become the leader of a city of 10 million people. And Fiddy, who runs a good-sized company, is saying, this is just ridiculous. Get this guy out of here. Really, the only person who could do that is probably Eric Adams.
Yeah, because this guy's, I mean, Zohran is also a socialist. I mean, in a big way, right? I mean, he's a total socialist commie. What I loved was how many people were Florida real estate agents who were like, oh, yeah, baby, we're going to get new business now. And there were all these memes out there of Ron DeSantis putting alligators along 95 to keep the New Yorkers from coming down there because so many people will be fleeing the city.
Yeah, I mean, that's genuinely entertaining. I wouldn't be surprised if there is a major bump in Florida or Austin, or for that matter, Chicago real estate in the next couple of months. You know, yeah, Mamdani, we on the right always tend to jokingly say, that guy's a commie. Like, I remember referring to Bernie Sanders on a train as that damned communist Sanders like 8 years ago. But I think that with Mamdani, it's actually pretty accurate. I mean, this is a candidate who's described how he wants to set up government-controlled grocery stores to solve the quote-unquote food desert problem. He wants to increase taxes enough to get $65 million more to spend on youth transgender care. So, like, when you think of if you thought of almost a joke left-wing candidate, like, yeah, my opponent is a 30-year-old Muslim from Uganda, George, you know, it would be very similar to Zohran. I mean, it's difficult for me to conceive that this could be the boss of a major city, but it could be.
Dr. Wilfred Reilly, I appreciate you being with us today. Before I let you go, by the way, I would be remiss if I did not mention to you, since we're talking about alligators, the alligator prison in Florida that they're going to open up here. This is, I think, probably the most Florida thing I've heard, and we have the audio and the video of this now. Florida Attorney General showing off the Alligator Alcatraz facility that will house illegal immigrants. My only question is this the most Florida story we've ever heard? Cut 36.
General James Uthmeyer here at the Miami-Dade Collier training facility. This is an old, virtually abandoned airport facility right in the middle of the Everglades. Florida's been leading on immigration enforcement, supporting the Trump administration and ICE's efforts to detain and deport criminal aliens. The governor tasked state leaders to identify places for new temporary detention facilities. I think this is the best one. As I call it, Alligator Alcatraz. This 30-square-mile area is completely surrounded by the Everglades. Presents a efficient, low-cost opportunity to build a temporary detention facility because you don't need to invest that much in the perimeter. If people get out, there's not much waiting for them other than alligators and pythons. Nowhere to go, nowhere to hide. Within just 30 to 60 days after we begin construction, it could be up and running and could house as many as 1,000 criminal aliens. This presents a great opportunity for the state of Florida to work with Miami-Dade and Collier counties. Alligator Alcatraz, we're ready to go.
Alligator Alcatraz, Dr. Reilly.
Yeah, I mean, so I think a lot of kind of second world countries basically have that, whether you're talking about Eastern Europe in the north and the Arctic, or you're talking about like El Salvador, Bukele, where we used to do, I mean, Alcatraz itself was on an island. It was surrounded by great white sharks. That was the whole thing. So if you got out, you'd just be recaptured, you'd be eaten by sharks. So I think it's good that we're getting through like the soft era of like, are the cable channels good enough in prison? You know, I'm sure it's horrible to go to prison. I don't want to. But in terms of physical amenities, we've definitely made a change toward the more civilized in recent years. And this might be a reversal where, I mean, you're probably talking soft-sided structures, which are tents. down there in the Florida swamps. You came here illegally, then you committed a rape. Okay, there's your bed on the ground till we can send you home.
Yeah.
What if I leave? Okay. I mean, you see the 12-foot-long bull gators walking around. I mean, I think that there's a place for that. And, I don't ever want to say that I have some sympathy for the Hunger Games model of social organization, but, if you walked across a desert to get here and then we put you in Alligator Alcatraz and you escaped, assuming you were charged with a nonviolent crime, I'd be fine with you going back to society. You're a warrior. Put you in that man's Marine Corps. But, for the ordinary person, being surrounded by crocodiles, yeah, you're alligators. You're not going to attempt an escape. You're not going to swim for it. You're just going to do your time until they put you on a plane. So, yeah, I'm supportive, I guess.
Dr. Wilfred Reilly, lies my liberal teacher told me. Always a pleasure, buddy. Thanks for joining us here. We appreciate it.